just before Diwali.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm your host, Soumya Mishra, for this wonderful masterclass which we have here by none other than Groha Intellicate, powered by National Association of Students of Architecture. It is a pleasure to have you all here as we embark on a journey of inspiration, learning, and enlightenment in the world of architecture and design. Allow me to quickly introduce you to the partnership between two esteemed organizations whose shared vision has made today's masterclass possible. The first one is Groha Intellicate, as you all know, which serves as a dynamic platform under Groha, curates exclusive sessions and workshops to inspire the architect and design community to engage into the meaningful dialogue and bring together ignited minds for mutual learning and inspiration. Sharing this pursuit is the pioneering organization of none other than NASA India, an architectural student organization recognized globally, boasting students participants from over 300 colleges, and it has been established since 1957, and its primary aim is has been to provide learning and networking platform for architecture students through various online and offline initiatives, including events, seminars, and workshops. So, can we all together have a huge round of applause for Intellicate Groha and NASA? Wonderful. This formidable partnership has led to the inception of our masterclass series, acknowledging the importance of inspiring the next generation, of course, you all, in the architecture and design world. With ever evolving ideas of our industry, we understand the wisdom and
पता
experiences
नहीं
of
क्या क्या बोल
leading
रहे हैं.
experts offer enriching experiences beyond typical classroom lectures and giving young minds
जाओ बैठो.
like you a platform to interact and learn with the real life design legends. So today we are honored because we have honored to be having a distinguished figure in the architecture and design world with us here today, who has won some amazing awards and titles. He has won Gold A Design Award, IDAC 2024 panelist, he has been, and he has been former FOED winner as well. With the wonderful experience, he is also the founding partner of 42 Architecture. Can we all together say the name? We have none other than Mr. Rudraksh Charan. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? I'll be welcoming sir in a while. I have much more to say. With over 13 years of professional experience, he has focused on creating simple artful solutions to complex problems.
21 years.
Since founding 42 Architecture with Priyanka Khanna
Don't
in
call me.
2005, he has garnered numerous national and international accolades, including Wade Excellence Award and National Award, Indie Excellence Award by IFJ. His projects across the country have been recognized in Festival of Architecture and Interior Designers, and his name has been recalled in numerous publications amongst the architecture and design community. And we are here today deeply privileged to have such an inspiring figure between us. Rudraksh sir will be sharing thoughts on the topic evolution of architectural practices, diving deep into ever-changing trends of design, building construction methodologies, and cultural influence that reflects in the practices. It highlights the impact of new technologies, sustainability, and society's evolving view on architecture. His insight and wisdom will truly be valuable asset that will elevate our experience of this masterclass. And last but definitely not the least, on the behalf of Groha Intellicate, we extend our heartfelt thanks and welcome to Mr. Rudraksh Charan for joining us here today. So get ready to take notes and ignite your mind and brace yourselves to get inspired. We request you to please come forward, sir, and take over. Everybody. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How are you guys? Can you listen to me clearly? Super, super. So, thank you very much for Groha and NASA to put this across. Uh, when Gaurav reached out to me to do this masterclass, I was thinking about what is going to be important for NASA and what is going to be important for an architect like me to be able to express to students. And I was thinking about architectural practice as a whole. I've been practicing 21 years now, and I've been observing my peers and a lot of other architectural practices in the past 21 years. So, I try to develop a topic which has some issues. So, and I also try to develop this topic from counterbalancing it with an issue and with a potential. So, I'm here talking about a topic which is evolution of design practices. This is not a discussion about my practice. This is a discussion about how architectural practices or design practices have evolved across time. And today, I'm seeing, I think all of you, mostly students, all of you students, right? So you guys are all going to become design professionals. Broadly all architecture students, or you have design students, interior design students also. So all broadly architecture students. So I see architecture students coming up to a platform and then realizing and deciding what they want to do and how they want to do. We are going to talk about collaboration. We're going to understand what collaboration is and how an individual fits into the model of collaboration, right? And we'll also talk about certain issues. I'm not talking specifically about sustainability or typology of buildings or typology of architecture. You are not going to see too many slides or pictures of any as such projects, but you're going to understand what strategy is. You're going to understand what an architectural practice was, is going to become, and in that flux, in that tug of war of what it was and what it is becoming now, how the role of the architect is changing, okay? And what other roles an architect can have. So let's see. Yeah. So evolution of design practices. So there are four broad aspects. There are four broad issues that we are trying to address here, and all these four broad topics are subset of one very interesting aspect today, which is complexity. So complexity of project, complexity of design brief, complexity of how a project is executed, designed, the number of people associated with the project, the budget, the materiality, everything is increasing. Everything is, the curve is like a hyperbolic, right? And how do you start addressing complexity? Can we, from the audience, take an example of a building that was designed that everybody would know about, maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago? Any example? India Habitat Center. Who designed India Habitat Center? Steins have designed it, right? Now you understand the building, you understand the materiality of the building, right? So it was one architectural practice, one structural consultant. There was a practice, there was a consultant, there was some engineers associated with it, and they did the entire building. Do you think there was an IT consultant then? No. Do you think there was a branding consultant then? No. Do you think there was a signage consultant then? No. Do you think a building like India Habitat Center requires signage design? Yes. Right? Now, all that did not exist. All of it was done by a generalist who was an architect, right? Now, can we talk about any building internationally being constructed or just got constructed today that everybody would know about? Give me an example. Any building. Hyderabad Airport. What is that? I'm not aware of it. Yeah. So a building designed by Zahadi, hypothetically, right? So do you think it will require a signage consultant or a IT consultant or for that matter of fact, a facade consultant? Yes, it will, right? So the complexity is increasing, you know. The complexity of projects, what it was and what they are today is increasing. The ambition is increasing. Now, I want to understand, if you try and comprehend work in units, if one person spends 8 to 9 hours in a day, spends 50, 60 hours in a week, can conceive in their mind a building like India Habitat Center 25 years ago, I don't think that that same one person can conceive, maybe at a micro level, yes, but conceive all aspects of a very large project today in a lifetime. And that is why you need specialists, and that is why you need multiple consultants, and that is why you need multiple people doing things that they are good at, all dovetailing into the overall vision of the architect, right? So we'll talk about complexity. We'll get into the depth of complexity, and then if you guys have some questions, we can address that. But how we are addressing complexity is, we are redefining the role of an architect, what he was and what he's becoming now. We are looking at time allocation in terms of a very, very, very big issue. How much time did India Habitat Center take to build? I don't know. Does somebody know? I'm not aware. Well, we can Google it and find out. But about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, an average national level project could take anywhere between 5 years to 7 years to build. It's not a very complicated thing. And it would take an average of a year to 2 years for it to be designed to get into construction. Today, the amount of time that we are taking in designing, or that used to take in design, is the amount of time that you build that building, right? So the amount of time that a project took to get built has reduced. The amount of time the architect got to conceive the project has reduced, and the complexity of the project has dramatically increased. As a result, what is happening? As a result, what one person with a team of 7 people used to do, now that same one person has to become 4 people, and that team of 7 has to become a team of 50. That automatically means there's a lot of more resources that need to be aligned with it, right? Then we are talking about vision leader, As a project, the architect used to conceive something and get a landscape architect and explain him their concept, and the landscape architect used to design as per the concept of the architect, right? It's in a way, you've bound the landscape architect already. कि यार मेरा ये dream है, तब तू इसको achieve कर, right? The same thing, you design a building and then you get a lighting designer and then you're like, अब इसकी building को light कर, इस interior space को light कर. And then you get an interior designer to, ये architecture है, इसको interior करो. I think that role also is transforming. We are now looking at a vision leader where a person who is a landscape architect would conceive a project and hire an architect and tell him कि यार ये landscape का vision है और इसमें कुछ build करना है तो architect चाहिए और इसकी lighting ऐसे करनी है तो एक lighting designer चाहिए. So the visioning of projects has also changed, and that is why I'm calling this evolution of design practices, because a lighting designer is also a designer, a landscape designer is also a designer, an interior designer is also a designer, right? And mind you, there is now going to be a very strong aspect where we will look at uh, building envelopes which are going to be designed. So this is going to be the future where you're going to have a real estate parcel. It could be a piece of land, it could be a FSI, it could be a flat floor of a building. And we are going to have architects who are going to be envelope architects. You can call them elevation architects, you can call them whatever you want. You can call them facade architects, but they're going to be envelope architects, and they will design the envelope, and the envelope of the building is going to be, could be parametric or could be digital, to the sense that it will allow an X amount of light in the morning. It is going to allow an X amount of electricity to be consumed through solar panels in the evening. And the functioning that is going to be allocated inside it is going to be done by a different architect, So the visioning of that project could be done by a facade consultant. So the pyramid, which used to be the architect and all consultant around, is also changing. And the third aspect that we're talking about is the physical environment of design. So I don't know what according to you is the physical, anybody, what is according to you is the physical environment of design? Where would you sit in design and how would you sit in design? Anybody? Matlab, where would you want to be when you are designing? Like, are you a student, architect, right? You're a student. So you'll eventually go to a studio and you'll sit and design,
Yes.
right? So studio is an environment, right? You could also design in a workshop.
No, I would prefer studio.
No, you will, because when you're doing the prototype of something, when the prototyping is happening for you in a workshop, you'll go to the workshop and you'll sit and you'll have the prototyping getting done in front of you to get it modified. You'll be designing there,
Yes.
right? You can also go to a factory and design, right? So the environment in which you sit and you design is also going to change, because we need to change that mindset that हमको सुबह उठ के ऑफिस जाना है डिजाइन करने के लिए, या हमें उठ के ऑफिस जाना है ड्राइंग बनाने के लिए. That needs to change. So we'll talk about these 4 aspects, and I'd love to have your thoughts on it. So there's a very complicated slide that my team has put together, and we are trying to explain you building complexity, and you can understand building complexity. How fundamental buildings used to be, and I'm not talking about how under-designed buildings used to be, but how simple building used to be, and we are talking about the complexity in terms of its structural form. So the complexity of structural form is increasing. The complexity of building typology increasing. So look at building developments 50 years ago. You will have complex type, you will have cluster type, you'll have super blocks, and now you have a collision of a cluster type with a super block and a super block having a cluster type over it, extending into a resort, extending into a mega building. So the complexity of the morphology is increased. Complexity of height has increased. This is only the human ego, which is, and the higher you go, the more you defy gravity, the more you defy gravity, the more you make it complicated to construct. So, infrastructure, automation, ventilation, the more complicated the building becomes, the more complicated its nervous system is, the more complicated the arteries and the veins of the building become, the more complicated the surfaces become. And like we are increasing complexity in design, in size, in morphology, in services, the number of people associated with them and their interactions is also increasing. Ultimately, architect used to interact only with the structural consultant. Today, the landscape architect also interacts with the structural consultant. The air conditioning contractor also interacts with the structural consultant. The structural consultant is also interacting with the lighting guy because they need to be able to make the correct niches and everything to be able to install their light. So, so if you have a list of all your vendors here and the same list over here, and if you start drawing lines of their interactions, that complexity is going to increase. So what is happening, because of this complexity is that basically the team associated with this construction is going to become larger. And, earlier you had the architect, then you had a couple of more people with the architect, you got a landscape designer, you got the engineer, then you started getting the town planner, you had the service engineers further got divided into so many, and there are so many people doing it, And it's not as if all of you don't know about it. But what is becoming a problem is when you graduate and you go to an office and you understand that this is the project and there are 35 consultants in it, how do you fit in there? Because तुमको तो ओवरऑल सिस्टम ही नहीं मालूम है ना उसका, तो तुमको तो ये समझना जरूरी है कि उसका हायरार्की कैसे है, और मैं हायरार्की में यहाँ आता हूँ तो मेरे को यहाँ से इससे इनपुट मिलेगा, मेरे को इनपुट को यहाँ प्रोसेस करके इसको देना, फिर ये यहाँ से आके उसको इनपुट को लेके उसको आगे जाएगा, टू बी एबल टू गेट द अल्टीमेट विजनिंग, राइट? तो वो जो इतना बड़ा जंगला बन रहा है लोगों का, वो जंगलों में तुम कहां फिट करोगे अपने आप को, और कहां फिट करना चाहते हो अपने आप को, ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो ये दिस इज बीन देयर फ्रॉम डे वन यार. वी आर टेकिंग द स्ट्रेस ऑफ एवरीबडी ना. क्लाइंट जो है वो भी अपनी ब्रीफ हमको दे रहा है, स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर भी हमी को बताता है सर ये नहीं बन सकता, प्लम्बिंग कंसल्टेंट भी हमको बता रहा है अरे जगह नहीं है मेरे पास. अगर इंटीरियर डिजाइनर लाओगे तो भी वो ये बताएगा आपने कैसी बिल्डिंग बना दी है, यहाँ पे तो फॉल सीलिंग बनाने के लिए जगह नहीं हो रही है. सो एवरीथिंग कन्वर्ज्ड टू वन पर्सन. नाउ इफ द कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इज इंक्रीजिंग and if the number of people in a project are increasing, if it is becoming an organism, if the role of an architect is actually dissolving into multiple people and becoming a role not of an individual but of a consciousness, then the stress cannot come on one person, right? The stress also needs to be divided, right? But does it get divided? Does it get divided? So how do you do that? And if you do not do that, होगा क्या कि एक आदमी होगा जिसको विजन करना था और जिसको इतने सारे आदमियों को इनपुट देना था, वो कर क्या रहा है, वो सारे आदमियों का सिर्फ स्ट्रेस झेल रहा है, तो वो काम कैसे करेगा? पॉसिबल ही नहीं है ना काम करना. तो उस सिस्टम को समझना बहुत जरूरी हो गया. या तो उसको समझना बहुत जरूरी है या उसको डेवलप करना बहुत जरूरी है. So the architect being this point of convergence should be there, but everybody should become a point of convergence for their own complexities. How does this go again? So this is the skill set of an architect which you should really think about. You want to be a problem solver, you want to be a visionary, you want to analyze things, you want to rationalize things, you want to innovate, or you want to you have your technical skills and this and that, or you want to start solving the knots, you want to start resolving the problems, or you want to start resolving stress that is getting created with so many people coming. It is a fact that we cannot not have them on board. Everybody, they need to be on board. But how is it and what is it that needs to be done to be able to align it. So increased project complexity, there are a lot of variable components. We were doing some sort of a graphic where we are trying to explain the contractor has his own parts, the architect has his own team, the consultants and the project managers have their bit, the executives or the clients have their own aspect to do. And the four of them are interacting, but you understand this is a point of stress because you understand there is so much more. I think this diagram is faulty. What it should be is that this should be able to communicate with this, and this should be able to communicate there, and that should be able to communicate there. And there should be a lot more ease over here. It should not be a convergence of, strategies and stuff like that. So, building process. You all know this? Do you all know this? Somebody does not know this, or somebody thinks otherwise? Okay, so this is how any general project would be taken through. Okay. I explained you an aspect about complexity. You understood that the problem is there. You understood that there is a convergence where the problem creates stress. You understand that it needs to be more like a matrix, less like a pyramid. Okay. The moment it becomes a matrix, a secondary consultant needs to talk to a secondary consultant, a vendor needs to talk to a vendor, a person needs to go there. How is it, what will happen when you, as students, graduate, you move up into an organization? You will have to understand the organization structure at a practical level. So, जो भी वो ऑफिस होगा, उसमें तुम अपने आप को पहले प्लेस करोगे. वो ऑफिस जो प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा होगा, उस प्रोजेक्ट की जो स्ट्रक्चरिंग है, उसमें फिर अपने आप को प्लेस करोगे. और जो प्रोजेक्ट की स्ट्रक्चरिंग है, उससे ज्यादा बड़ा जो एक इंडस्ट्री है, फिर अब उसमें अपने आप को प्लेस करोगे. ये तीनों जो प्लेसमेंट्स हैं, इनको आइडेंटिफाई करना बहुत जरूरी है. बिकॉज ये जो प्लेसमेंट है, ये अब एक सिंगुलर प्लेसमेंट नहीं रहेगा कि मैं आर्किटेक्ट हूं और मैं ग्रो करता रहूंगा. यू कैन टुडे ग्रेजुएट एज एन आर्किटेक्ट. You can, from an architect, move to an interior designer. You can become from an interior designer, you can become a concept interior designer. You can become a visualization interior designer. You can become an execution interior designer. You can become a project management interior company. You can position yourself. And in that positioning, you need to understand how the forces are coming. कि यार अगर मैं वेटिंग के रोल में हूं, तो आई विल नीड somebody to give me a design which is proper, and then I need to vet and give. I cannot butt in and become a designer there. But at the same time, when I get the design, I need to make sure that the design is correct so that when I give it to a contractor, it can be built. Understanding those links in the complexity today is very, very important. So again, a very interesting diagram Anila's put up. Design process timeline. So I wanted to do this in an interactive way with any of you, and rather than having volunteers, I'm going to pick up a couple of people. So what do you think? So give me an example of a project that you would want to do. Any example, and it needs to be a humble project.
Hello. Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. So let's say we are doing, we are making a farmhouse for an industrialist.
Farmhouse.
Yeah.
Right. So cut to jumping from you to her. If a client comes to you today and tells you that I want to, and he's an industrialist, and he tells you that I want to make a farmhouse, then from today, in how many days do you think you should be able to give him the farmhouse?
Sir, it will take time, at least 2 to 3 months for the design process. No?
The question is very simple.
Oh,
If he comes to you today, so from today, in how many days should he get his farmhouse?
sir, it will take years.
Years is very subjective, na? It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Maybe 1, 2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
Okay. Give him the mic. So, do you think that you can give a farmhouse to a client in 2 years' time?
Yes, sir.
2 years.
Yes.
So, 2 years is maybe 700 odd days, right? So, do you understand that this process is 700 days? Right?
Yes.
So, if it is 700 days, and I have my team sitting there, I made them do this a couple of days back. If it is 700 days, what day do you think the construction should start?
So I think design process should be done within 15 days.
15 days.
Yeah.
Okay, give him the mic. Do you think design process can be done in 15 days?
I think the design process can be done in 15 days, but if the client is requiring for an innovative design, so it may vary. It may include 5 more days.
See, I'm not talking about subjectivity of design. कोई तुमसे कहेगा पहाड़ों में फार्म हाउस बनाना है, कोई तुमसे कहेगा रेगिस्तान में फार्म हाउस बनाना, ऑब्वियसली टाइम डिफर कर सकता है. मैं तो एक जेनेरिक क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूं तुमसे कि अगर 700 दिन में हमें एक प्रोजेक्ट देना है, विच मोर और लेस एवरीबॉडी इज इन अग्रीमेंट विद, अगर 700 दिन में प्रोजेक्ट देना है तो कौन से दिन पे हमें कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू करना चाहिए?
I think in the 28th day.
20वें दिन में कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू करना चाहिए. ठीक है, चलो किसी और को माइक दो. 20वें दिन पे कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू करने के लिए तुम्हारे पास क्या क्या डॉक्यूमेंट होना चाहिए?
बेसिकली साइट सेटिंग आउट प्लान्स, ताकि हम साइट में डिमार्केशंस वगैरह कर
मेरा
सकें.
क्वेश्चन है, 20वें दिन अगर कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू करना है तो बिल्डिंग का एलिवेशन होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए?
तब तक बेसिकली लेआउट होना चाहिए ताकि हमें पता चल सके.
बट एलिवेशन नहीं होना चाहिए कि हम बिल्डिंग बनाना शुरू कर देते हैं, एलिवेशन बनता रहेगा.
एलिवेशन यूजुअली बाद में डिजाइन होते हैं.
हाँ, सो हाउ मेनी पीपल अग्री विद द फैक्ट कि एलिवेशन बाद में डिजाइन होता है? बाद में नहीं होता. Nobody agrees with you.
मतलब प्रोसेस के साथ चलता रहता है.
Right. So, do you agree? बिल्डिंग का एलिवेशन डिजाइन होना चाहिए पहले? हाँ, so
90% ऑफ
I might have a question कि प्रोजेक्ट अगर हमें डिजाइन करना है फार्म हाउस के लिए, तो it basically takes 7 to 8 months from my perspective, क्योंकि it's a farm house, it's not a big deal.
डिजाइन के लिए?
The whole construction process.
Okay.
मेरी आवाज तेज है.
Okay.
तो इसके लिए I think हमें प्लानिंग के लिए सिर्फ प्लानिंग एंड प्लान्स वगैरह के लिए we might take a month. Okay. For planning and all those plans and concept, we might take up.
So see, the thing is, if we start talking about what all goes into the project, we'll be having breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
Because it's a very long discussion. My question is very simple. She says that we want to deliver the project in 700 days.
Okay.
We are all in agreement with that for now. Okay. For a project to be delivered in 700 days, he says that the construction should start on day 20. All my question is that do you want to start construction of a project without having the elevation of the building done, or knowing what the 3D, or knowing what the overall planning is, or knowing what the plumbing pipes are going, or knowing what the structure is, knowing what the RCC design is, knowing what the facade design is, बिना उसके हम कंस्ट्रक्शन शुरू कर सकते हैं?
बिना प्लान्स वगैरह एलिवेशन के हम कंस्ट्रक्शन स्टार्ट नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि हम लोगों को एक डॉक्यूमेंट दिखाना होता है गवर्नमेंट को पहले कि हमें ऐसा कंस्ट्रक्शन करना है, हमें ऐसा एलिवेशन देना है. अगर वो नहीं होगा तो हम वहाँ पे काम ही नहीं करना चालू कर पाएंगे जब तक हमें अप्रूवल नहीं मिलेगा.
इस स्टेज पे काम नहीं शुरू कर सकते, हमें इस स्टेज पे काम शुरू करना होता है। और इस स्टेज पे काम शुरू करने के लिए कितना टाइम लगेगा तुम्हारे को यहाँ पहुंचने में?
हमें माइट टेक 2 to 3 months, क्योंकि हमें
So
सारे
20 days
designs
और 3 months में बहुत डिफरेंस है।
बहुत डिफरेंस है, क्योंकि हम
तो
लोगों
what
को
is correct? Is 3 months correct or 20 days correct?
I think my
Why don't you tell me? 3 months, just because she said that. Okay. Okay. So why I was trying to explain this to you is, you remember that aspect that earlier we got so much more time to design the building, and then we got so much more time to execute the building. And today you get so much little time to design and execute a building, but the building complexity is so much more, right? This is what the important thing is. The essence of sitting in a chair, overlooking a garden with a pencil in your hand and a sketchbook and conceiving something for days is over. It is over. If 200 days is what you want to give the if 700 days is what you want to give the project in, and hypothetically I say day 100 is when you want to start construction, then in 100 days you need to achieve this. And that also means that your facade consultant would have already done the facade on the basis of the architectural design that you have made, and the material has already been finalized, and the structural consultant has already done the structure, and the plumbing consultant has already done the plumbing, and the electrical consultant has already planned the electricals. And so many people put together have already come into the picture and have already delivered so much for it to start. बिकॉज अगर तुम ये सोचोगे कि हाँ मैं सेटिंग आउट करके काम करके खुदाई शुरू कर दूंगा तो वो बिल्डिंग नहीं बनेगा, और अगर बनेगा तो पता नहीं क्या बनेगा. You understand? So the more the complexity of the project is, the more planning it requires. And if you are not going to plan, then it is going to become the same intersection I'm talking about. All the stress is going to come onto you. And if all the stress is going to come onto you, then you will not have time to design, but to only take stress. And that is the difference. That is what is there today. A definitive architectural practice is a practice which is on its toes, where it knows the entire process, it understands it. Everybody in the practice have their position. They know the input data they will get and the output data they need to get in the amount of time that is allocated to them. And this fundamental thing is called processing, which is the single most definitive thing that has changed design practices from what they were to what they are and what they are going to be in the future. Processes, nothing more. Design is also a process. Development is also a process. And the key to a process, the fundamental key to a process is to know your output. कंप्यूटिंग में सिखाते हैं ये, राइट? क्योंकि अगर ये नहीं होगा तो she will take 8 months to design the project and then she'll only be left with 120 days to finish the project. So this is what we were trying to explain here, that the amount of time that is allocated, and try and understand that even in this design per chart, which is your domain, there are things which are intangible and there are things which are tangible. Now, do you guys know of anything which is intangible, which could topple the timeline of a project, like topple it? भाई 1-2 दिन से ऊपर नीचे हो जाएगा तो उसको, but something that can topple the timeline? Natural calamity, yeah. That can topple anything, right? Sanctions can, policy can, you know. किसी प्रोजेक्ट का आपको सैंक्शन नहीं मिला, आपने डिजाइन करके सबमिट किया, उन्होंने कहा हम तो आपको बनाने नहीं देंगे, you know, that can. Those are things that are not in your control, but things that within the fraternity are there, because variables बढ़ गए ना, जब complexity बढ़ गई और number of people बढ़ गए तो variables बढ़ गए, जब variables बढ़ गए तो गड़बड़ होने के chances भी बढ़ गए. तो ऐसे क्या गड़बड़ के chances हैं, कुछ examples अगर मिले जिससे कि प्रोजेक्ट की टाइमलाइन ही हिल जाएगी. बेसिकली नॉट प्लानिंग, ओके, वो तो बात हो ही गई. उसके अलावा डेथ ऑफ वर्कर, सो वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्ट है, वो तुम कुछ नहीं कर सकते उसके बारे में एज एन आर्किटेक्ट और एज अ डिजाइन प्रिंसिपल. बट या इफ यू बिकम अ प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर, यस यू कैन डू इट. बट व्हाट एल्स?
ड्यूरिंग द कंस्ट्रक्शन अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम हो जाए, लाइक अगर हमने कोई प्लान या हमने कुछ बनाया है वो फॉलो वहाँ पे ना हो, तो हमें बार बार ही उसको रिकंस्ट्रक्ट और करना पड़े. लाइक हमने एक द्वारका में एक बिल्डिंग देखी थी, तो दैट्स फॉर लाइक गैस लाइन की मेन बिल्डिंग बना रहे हैं वो लोग, बट वहाँ पे एक प्रॉब्लम उन्होंने ये करी है कि उनकी फॉल सीलिंग इस तरीके से कंस्ट्रक्ट हुई है, वो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर की गलती है कि अब उसमें प्लम्बिंग लाइन नहीं जा पा रही है. तो उसकी वजह से अब उनको दोबारा से वो तोड़ के दोबारा बनानी पड़ रही है इन ऑर्डर टू जस्ट गेट दैट टू. तो आई गेस कि अगर वहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम हुए, द क्या कहते हैं, कम्युनिकेशन बिटवीन
So obviously problems when you are building, you know architects are supposed to build the biggest objects people are going to possess, right? Problems will come and they need to be rectified, and there are blunders that get made. Matlab, has any of you never seen a project which is abandoned? Have you? Koi example? Any examples of project which is abandoned? Absolutely. Why did it get abandoned? Financial trouble? It was policy. It was policy. They did not have the sanctions to build what they were building. Right? Anything else? Right. So this is what the problem is. The temperament of an individual, when you know that you are getting into an environment, so we've established this, that you are going to get in to a consciousness. Is not a single architect. कोई ऐसा mentor नहीं मिलने वाला तुम्हारे को कि एक आदमी होगा उसके नीचे जाओगे वो सब कुछ सिखा देगा. You are going to get into a consciousness, whether it is a 10 people office or it is a 200 people office. You're going to get into a consciousness. You're going to place yourself in the consciousness. In the consciousness, there's going to be input to you. You will have to process this and you'll have to give output to whatever your ability, strength, as a trainee, as a fresher, as a 2-year experience, as a 8-year experience, as a 15-year experience is going to be, right? So you need to position yourself there. You are moving to that. Now, if you do not know complexity of what can go wrong in the multiple people who are there, then तो हर जंक्शन पे कुछ ना कुछ गलत होएगा ही होगा, क्योंकि तुम्हें उसे रिजॉल्व भी नहीं करना था. भाई जहां एक आदमी था वहां एक ही गलती हो सकती थी, और एक ही आदमी गलती करता और एक ही आदमी गलती ठीक करता है. यहाँ 300 लोग हैं तो जल्दी ज्यादा गलतियां होंगी, और ज्यादा गलती होगी तो कम्युनिकेट ही नहीं होगी, और कम्युनिकेट नहीं होगी तो रिजॉल्व नहीं होगी. The biggest problem why projects get delayed today, or the projects why they are not built the way today, is communication. There is nothing more. Because there are so many people. तुम किसी को कुछ बताओगे, उसको उसका कुछ नहीं समझ में आएगा, बस उसको कुछ और समझ में आएगा, वो चीज उसको कुछ और बताएगा, फिर वो कुछ और बताएगा और कुछ और बन के कुछ और आएगा तुम्हारे पास. That is the problem. And इसको ठीक कैसे करेंगे चाइनीज विस्पर को? What is the problem? This is a problem. Now, how do you rectify it? No. Right. Well, documentation is going to make it better. You know, rather than you giving verbal instruction, if you type an email, it is always better. Okay. So I'm talking at a very macro level. I'm talking about a human and a digital interface of communication. Information cannot move in a linear format when there are multiple people associated. Information needs to move in a grid format, whether it is an orthogonal grid or it is a pentagrid or any sort of grid. अगर एक आदमी से दूसरे आदमी को इंफॉर्मेशन जानी है और चार और आदमियों को उसके बारे में जानना जरूरी है, तो it needs to be like that. And when the information goes, it needs to be checked whether that information that has gone to that person is correct or not. You know, and this is also going to be a part of processing. This is also going to be a part of this entire small aspect that we talk about, where you are transferring information from one person to another person. You know, and तभी जब तुम्हारी दिमाग में ये कॉन्शियसनेस होगी, तभी तुम कोलैबोरेट कर पाओगे किसी के पास, ना तो कोलैबोरेट ही नहीं कर पाओगे. तुम किसी को कुछ बताओगे, वो कुछ और करेगा. मतलब you will tell your staff to do something, your staff will tell the consultant staff something, the consultant staff will tell the consultant something, and the consultant will make something and send you something else, right? And that is going to create a rippled effect in the entire project if it happens maybe 25 times. And if there are 300 people, it can happen 25 times. It's very easy. So like we are talking about how facets are increasing, how in these challenges. This is a very interesting aspect which I want everybody to try and appreciate. You know, when you become an architect, you have an ego that, you know, you do everything. You know, तुम landscape consultant हो ना, वही कर, वो नहीं, इसको तो ऐसे बनाना है, नहीं इसको तो ऐसे बनाना है, इसको तो ऐसे करना है. You know, we think from a very myopic point of view. Okay. How many of you feel that the architect is more important than architecture itself? I'm saying, how many of you feel that the architect is more important than the architecture itself? There is no objective answer to this question, but I will point to you. In your mind, do you think Zaha Hadid is more important than the projects that she's built? Honest answer.
Sir, at the initial stage, the project was not very large at that stage, but when it is built.
No, I'm talking today. She's not there.
Sir, I think the building is more important. Building is more important than the.
But as a celebrity architect, I think everybody knows her more than her buildings, right? So in a way, architect is more important than the architecture that she's created.
I guess अगर आप जब तक architecture को अच्छे से नहीं present करोगे, आप उतने famous नहीं हो सकते.
So is becoming famous the point?
No, it's a point कि अगर आपको वो चाहिए कि हाँ हम अच्छे architect हैं, you are doing something, so your building should speak, not you should speak. So designing an architecture is much more important than.
So yeah. So it's again a very simple thing that if you put yourself out of the equation and the architect itself becomes an empty entity, a person, and I'm not talking about a person, it could be a person in a silhouette, which is a consciousness, which is a combination of so many other people, which is what I'm trying to explain to you, because if it is one person, there'll be too much stress on that person. Yeah. Then the product, then architecture supersedes in terms of importance than the individual itself. Okay? Are you understanding that? Now, if architecture supersedes the individual itself, or it supersedes the consciousness, then the consciousness is working to achieve the architect, not the architecture. Not that architecture is defining how famous or how rich or how successful the consciousness is. Understood? Okay. When that objectivity would be attained, then these pyramids will become valid. Okay. Do you guys understand this? Somebody who's not understanding, let me know. So we tried to do 4 examples. That's the only 4 slides we'll show you of projects where they could be projects or they could be parts of projects where the visioning has not been done by the architect, but has been done by the sub-consultant. And the architect in turn has become the sub-consultant. And I think the future of design practices is going to be that. The future of design practices is going to be able to objectively understand the brief of a project, understand who is the primary consultant on it, and then the architect works towards it. Okay? कोई मेरे को ऐसा एग्जाम्पल देना चाहता of a building where the architect was not the apex designer and there was somebody else like the lighting consultant or the interior design consultant or the landscape consultant or the facade consultant or the environmental consultant who was the apex consultant?
So one example, not necessarily the environment consultant, but HCP designed the Central Vista project. So I think the government had a major part to play in the design role.
That's visioning. Yeah. Right? Every project will either require a patron, or it will require, or it will have a purpose, or it will have a folly, किसी का whimsical मन. आर्किटेक्ट का रोल उसके बाद ही आता है. वी एज आर्किटेक्ट्स डोंट फंड प्रोजेक्ट्स ना कि आओ चलो यहाँ से वहां तक की रोड बना देते हैं, ऐसा तो नहीं है. सो ऑब्वियसली देयर इज ऑलवेज अ क्लाइंट, बट द क्लाइंट डजंट नो व्हाट दे वांट. दैट्स व्हाई दे हायर द कंसल्टेंट. माय आइडिया इज स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट, फ्रॉम द पॉइंट द प्रोजेक्ट इज ऑलरेडी कंसीव्ड कि हाँ यार चलो हमें एक नया पार्लियामेंट चाहिए, तो दैट इज परफेक्टली फाइन. जो तो somebody has decided चाहिए, अब उसकी विजनिंग की बात करें. तो इफ वी टॉक अबाउट विजनिंग, देन व्हाट?
Sir, visioning I think it's a derivative of visioning is a derivative of multiple aspects that are created by the public only, and what are the wishes of the people. I think the word user is the primary focus that should be there, because the user creates the wishes, and the public and the places and the surrounding context, they create the inspiration for a place, because that's the first thing we take into account while creating a building. So all these public aspects, they ultimately contribute to creating a vision for the architect. He doesn't necessarily have a thought out of nowhere to create a building. He takes all that into consideration and then starts with his rough sketches or designs.
You're talking about design process.
Yes.
I'm not talking about design process. I'm talking about a very large aspect. कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट लोगे अगर, तो उसमें कोई एक आर्किटेक्ट होगा या मास्टर प्लानर होगा या कोई आदमी होगा जो उसकी विजनिंग करेगा, एंड फिर उसमें मल्टीपल कंसल्टेंट्स उसके साथ अलाइन करेंगे. सो देयर इज अ पिरामिड ना, कि द प्रोजेक्ट है, ब्रीफ है, पब्लिक इज द क्लाइंट, देन देयर इज अ इंटेंट कम्स एज अ ब्रीफ टू द आर्किटेक्ट, दे कंसीव इट, देन इट गेट्स ब्रोकन अप into sub consultants. So that pyramid is there. I'm talking about a project in which the architect is not at the top.
Sir, I'll have to think about that.
No, I'm just asking people if you know of an example.
Diamond boards in Surat, like for the diamond boards in Surat. So there the climate, basically the climatology is more important than the building itself, and you can actually feel that they have taken into consideration landscape more than the all the other elements.
Yeah, but that was again conceived by the architect, no? That we will give the environment more importance than the building itself, right? It wasn't conceived by anybody else than the architect. Think of a project where it's a landscaping project, and there's a landscape architect who visions the project out where you need a building, or you need a pavilion, or you need just a monument which needs to be lit, or you need to be a monument that needs to be made out of light. How the interaction of sub-consultants, or how that hierarchy of the pyramid is going to get aligned. So we'll try and give you some examples. This is what my team has been able to identify. So this is Changi. This is the old Changi, And over here, the landscape architect was the conceiving part, where they designed the landscape and they wanted a building around it, And the brief was to the architect from the landscape architect. Yaar, ye karna hai, ab tu building bana iske charon taraf. This, at a conventional level, will hit an architect's ego if it was 25 years ago. But I think the consciousness of what an architect is today is to be able to respect that. So all of you, when you are moving into the industry, you need to be able to respect that, of where you fit in, what the vision is, what the larger picture is, how you fit into the larger picture to be able to contribute to it. This is a building by Snohetta, and so they conceived the interiors of this space, and then they designed the building around it. What is this? What is this? A public library? It's a public library. So again, the aspect of visioning has changed. You do not need to start from the container and then fill it up. You can start from the interiors and then develop the container around it. And obviously it can be done, but it was never done. It is now being done. And why is it now being done with so many complicated people coming into the picture? It is about positioning yourself in that consciousness of, in that complexity. कि हाँ, एक इंटीरियर डिजाइनर, उसने सोचा ये करना है, मैं आर्किटेक्ट हूँ, मेरे को इसके चारों तरफ एक बिल्डिंग बनानी है, to respect the interiors of what they have designed. And why not? So this is just the top of the Louvre. So the building was obviously conceived by John Novell, and the top was conceived by the lighting designer as a perforated roof, which is going to have this kind of a pattern. And the structure and the architecture was conceived after the lighting intent was conceived. So this, I'm talking about environment now. It's very important that we break away from our notion of just going to the studio and working, going to site and designing, going to a vendor's factory and sitting there and understanding something that is getting made, so that you can give your input for it to be made in a different way, or be made in a way for you. That is also your studio. Going to attend all these international fairs where you can see the culmination of technology all through is also your studio. Your studio is not just restricted to that space that you go and you use AutoCAD and you use Revit on. The environment has completely shifted. And we need to start thinking about that environment now. We need to start moving away from that. You need to start going to spaces where materiality has been explored in a different way to be able to understand that, to be able to work further. सब कुछ वहीं पे बैठ के नहीं हो सकता. So that's about it, guys. I don't know how much I've been able to explain you in this 45 minutes that I've been chatting, but if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Over to you.
So this might be quite a controversial question. You mentioned throughout your presentation, you mentioned a lot about consultants. But as we seen previously in architectural history, the architect was taught all these aspects, the plumbing, the electrical, the lighting, by himself. He didn't need to consult all of these people.
Yes.
So I think the architects are becoming lazy, and the practice is moving towards a practice of laziness, that we need to consult a lot of people and we're not confident in our own knowledge. I think we should focus on architects being nurtured in a way that they're confident in itself, so that they don't need all these consultants. And basically, I think the consulting part, it creates a lot of problems, delays, confusions in the whole process. I mean, it's relative to the project and how consultants go together with each other.
Right.
But I think laziness is a big aspect that is contributing to it.
So I'm going to answer this question in two parts, and the second part will also have two parts. So part number one, laziness is something that you are claiming, which can only be proved by understanding the facets. Okay? Part number two has two parts. Whether we need consultants or we don't need consultants. So why can the architect not, like the practice used to be 25 years ago, not do everything on his own? And part number two is no, yes, we now need consultants. And if there is a problem, which is what I'm trying to address, then how do you solve the problem? The problem exists because you've created that and the architect is here. If you remove them from here and becomes a consciousness, and the consultant is empowered to be able to, so first he needs to understand. He also needs to think like you. Probably you need to become a consultant to him, and then you will not behave like the other consultant who is making your life miserable. That's the second part. The first part, why can the architect not do all on his own, is the complexity. So you mean to say that a building like the Marina Bay Sands can be conceived by one individual in terms of its architecture, facade, structure, electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, environmental consultancy, in terms of infrastructure of IT, infrastructure of security, understanding infrastructure of a casino, understanding security of a casino, not in one lifetime, my dear.
So granted, it may not be possible for large-scale projects, but for small-scale projects like housing or small offices or retail spaces, it can be done.
Right. So how many of you would, so let's take a small example of a retail space. Do you or do you not feel that you need a lighting consultant for a retail space?
So it depends on the services and the offices you're offering.
It is your retail space. You conceived it right now because you got the question up. So think about your retail space and tell me whether it needs a lighting consultant or not.
So I'm not qualified to answer that because
Why?
I've not completed my degree.
No,
So
no,
I will
you are.
know more about it.
I'll tell you why you are qualified, because you're having discussion with me. Yeah. Right? So whatever you talk is going to be your opinion, and everybody else over here is not burdened to take that as opinion as hardlined. You know, they might agree with you, they might not agree with you. But I have a simple question. In your mind, you have a retail space. Does that retail space require a lighting consultant or not? Very simple.
So when I complete my degree,
Hmm.
I think I'll be confident enough myself to design those aspects, at least the little aspects that are granted, that are required in a small scale project. And I should be able
so
to.
I will contradict you here. Lighting design and little do not go in hand. Every material that you are going to put in that retail space, including the product that you are going to retail, is black without light. How is it little? कपड़े का रंग नहीं समझ में आएगा अगर लाइटिंग करेक्ट नहीं होगी, वो लिटिल कैसे है? और अगर वो लिटिल नहीं है और वो मेगा है, तो तुम कैसे सोच सकते हो कि तुम ही कर सकते हो? और अगर कर सकते हो तो तुम स्पेशलिस्ट भी हो सकते हो. आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि अगर जनरलिस्ट कैन नॉट डू दैट, बट दैट डज नॉट मीन दैट अ स्पेशलिस्ट कंसल्टेंट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? All right. So,
Super.
ladies and
Tell me.
Sir, like you contradicted him that we would require a lighting consultants.
No,
but
I'm not saying you would. I'm saying, is
Yeah.
it important
कि
to have a
जैसा आपने कहा
lighting
कि
consultant?
होगा, मतलब there are situations where architect or interior designer itself could handle all the things now,
Yes.
right? So I've seen something, some project like a friend of mine is doing in Gurgaon. So he's an architect himself and a student as well. So he has done interior electrical, lighting, and along with the structure part itself. So I'm saying that it's not really necessary to have all the consoles and variables.
So if a person is designing something, मैं कहता हूँ कि मैं एक building design करता हूँ. You know, it's a singular shell of mud with one single slit in the ceiling, with one single light and one circular window. Obviously, I don't need any consultant for it. It's not, the fact is that if the project is on a grade of complexity, it is simple, then obviously you might not require. But is that all the type of consultants that projects that you will do or everybody else will over here do? It's not.
Yep.
Right? And the way you saw the three progressions, the way projects are evolving, they are becoming more complex.
Yeah.
And when they are becoming more complex, you need specialists to do it for you. So there is obviously going to be one-off examples for everything. That's not, matlab, you know, earlier works of Tadao Ando, he was very clear that I want to even get into designing of the concrete mix that I am using, was for the simple fact that his structural engineer could not understand the color of concrete that he wanted. You know, so that's a completely different thing. But that does not mean that in the progression of projects, with the increasing complexity, we are not going to require service consultants. Yes, we will. And laziness is subjective.
Sir, another thing I want to ask is what is 42 architecture? Like, why 42?
My company.
No, why 42 What is 42 architecture?
Why not?
What?
Nothing, yeah. When we were conceiving the name of this company, we did not want to call it Rudraksh and Priyanka Design Studio or something like that. So
is it your lucky number or something like that?
Have you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No.
Has anybody heard about it? No. So 42 is the answer to life, universe, and everything, as per the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
We just put MM as a dimension to make it indexical to architecture. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Mike.
So, like you explained a lot about how the complexities are increasing in architecture, and so the roles are being delegated. It's not like architect is not the jack of all trades. So there are a lot of delegations happening in the field. So my question is like, who is the designer right now? Like we have seen buildings which have landscape architect came came out with a vision for that kind of a design. There are buildings for which the vision was came up by interior designer or something. So who is the designer right now? Because what is the role of an architect end of the day now?
Role of, I explained to you, the role of architect
Yeah,
is transforming. You know, unfortunately, the role of an architect is becoming a person who's getting bashed by everybody, which it should not be. And if he does not want his role to be of a person who's being bashed by everybody, then he needs to put in this complex structure in place so that this entire thing can work as an organization in itself. But I would say that it is not going to be an individual in the future. It is going to be a collection of people. It could be a collection of people and bots also. You know, so the way the projects are going, you know, we are building right now as buildings. So we have land and we build. Our definition of land is a plot, is a township, and then a city, right? Then we talk about a bungalow, or we talk about a small building, we talk about block, we talk about a skyscraper. तो वो बिल्डिंग का डेफिनेशन है, ये जमीन का डेफिनेशन है. अब ये चेंज कर जाएगा. जमीन का और बिल्डिंग का एक कॉम्बिनेशन बन जाएगा. And they are going to be, you know, they are going to be three-dimensional cities. So Neom is the first example, right? जमीन है क्या वो? बिल्डिंग है क्या वो? नहीं है ना? It's a project which is three-dimensional, and it is so large that not a single human being can conceive it. It has to be conceived by a consciousness. And that is what is going to happen. हाँ, credits end में किसको मिलेंगे मालूम नहीं मेरे को.
Credits and blames.
Super. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Mr. Rudraksh would request you to please be here for a few minutes, 2 more minutes, because from the NASA team itself, they would really like to humbly thank you. And to do that, I would request Kashish, Zonal President, Zone 1, NASA India, to please come and express your...
Thank you for the invite. On behalf of the National Association of Students of Architecture India and the 67th Year Council, I, Kashish Seni, currently serving as the Zonal President, Zone 1, would like to express gratitude to you, sir, for joining us for the session and for delivering such insightful discussions and having such enlightening discussions with all of us today here. I would also like to thank Grohe Intellect for having this session and for collaborating with NASA India, for having these master classes with us that give students a platform to have intellectual deliberations with best from the industry like you, sir. And also I would like to extend a very big thank you for all the students who've come to visit for this session here today physically, and also the ones who are connected with us through the online mode. And thank you, sir, once again for the session.
Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an absolutely thrilling masterclass. We hope all of you had a wonderful, wonderful time. If did, then I think we can do some cheering as well. We have done a lot of clapping, but I think we can make some noise as well on the count of 3 for NASA and Groha Intellect. Can we make some noise? 1, 2, 3. Come on, everyone. That's the spirit. Okay, so now it's time for all of you to share your opinions, interact, and let me tell you all, we have a very special segment for all of you. As a token of thanks, we would be giving you something very special, and that will happen on that segment, that side of the showroom. But for now, enjoy yourselves, have a wonderful time. We'll be starting off with the beverages and snacks, and keep enjoying this wonderful segment. I'm your host, Soumya Mishra, signing off. Thank you. Take care.